Daniel, Book of Daniel, Babylon, Surviving Babylon, Daniel in the lion's den, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, Bible prophecy, faith in Babylon, living in Babylon. These words are not just ancient echoes, they are burning truths for our world today. Imagine being a teenager, torn from your homeland, dragged into the heart of Babylon, surrounded by gold, power, and idols that promised everything but secretly destroyed the soul. Everyone thought Babylon was the ultimate kingdom, but hidden beneath the glittering towers was a dark empire designed to erase faith, silence prayer, and crush identity. What if I told you that the story of Daniel is not just history, but a mirror of our modern Babylon? In a world of temptation, social pressure, and a culture that demands compromise, Daniel stood firm when everyone else bowed. He refused the king's food, he chose purity over comfort, and his prayer shook the very throne of Babylon. Why did Daniel's courage shine brighter than the flames of the furnace? Why did his faith silence the roaring lions? And what secrets of divine wisdom allowed him to see what kings and scholars could never understand? These are not dusty stories, but living lessons for every soul fighting to stay pure in a corrupted world. In this video, you will discover how to survive Babylon's fire, how to resist when everyone else gives in, and how to unlock the wisdom that turns fear into victory. The Book of Daniel reveals a power that Babylon could never defeat, a faith that still burns across centuries, and a legacy that calls you and me to stand firm today. If you were standing in Babylon, would you bow or would you rise? Tell me in the comments where you see Babylon in your life, and let us walk this journey together. Like, share, and subscribe so this message of hope and strength continues to shine. Babylon, the empire of seduction. Babylon was not just an empire of bricks and gold. It was an empire of the soul. The Book of Daniel shows us how this glittering kingdom was designed to break identities, crush faith, and reshape people into images that served its idols. Babylon stood as the very symbol of temptation, its temples towering with idols of gold, its banquets overflowing with food sacrificed to false gods, its rulers demanding loyalty not to truth, but to power. Imagine walking through its massive gates as Daniel did, a young exile stripped from Jerusalem, your name changed, your language stolen, your faith mocked. This is how Babylon worked. It sought to erase the memory of God by drowning it in excess and distraction. Does this sound far away? Or does it sound like the very world we live in now? For modern America, Babylon has returned in the glow of screens, the roar of Wall Street, the endless noise of entertainment that promises fulfillment but leaves the soul empty. The same way Daniel stood against the flood of Babylon's seduction, we too are called to guard our hearts. The danger of Babylon was not just persecution, it was assimilation. Many exiles blended in, eating the king's food, bowing to his idols, enjoying the comfort of compromise. That is the tragedy of Babylon. It rarely destroys with violence first. It seduces with luxury, convenience, and the fear of standing out. How many times have we also bowed, not before a golden statue, but before the idol of approval, the idol of career, the idol of endless scrolling? The seduction is real, and it leaves scars far deeper than physical chains. The lesson of Babylon is this: the battle of faith is not fought only in public trials, but in private decisions, in the small moments when no one sees. Daniel survived Babylon because he knew his soul could not be purchased, and his faith could not be exchanged for comfort. The question for us is piercing. Where is Babylon luring us today, and how far are we willing to resist? Share in the comments what modern Babylon looks like in your life, because identifying the enemy is the first step to defeating it. Daniel's first stand: food, purity, and identity. Daniel's first battle was not fought with lions or flames. It was fought at the dinner table. Offered the richest food from the king's palace, food that was soaked in idolatry and compromise, Daniel chose vegetables and water. To Babylon this seemed foolish, even weak, but in heaven's eyes it was power. For purity is not about grand gestures. It is about small, consistent choices that declare, "My identity is not for sale." Daniel teaches us that faith is not forged in the spotlight, but in the quiet moments of refusal. It is easy to proclaim faith when the crowd is watching. It is far harder to whisper no when temptation looks harmless. This decision shaped everything that followed. By choosing purity, Daniel proved that his loyalty belonged to God alone, not to Nebuchadnezzar's table. His faith became stronger, his wisdom sharper, his courage deeper. And when the trials of the furnace and the lions came, his soul was already trained to resist. That is the secret of Daniel's survival. His victories in the great battles were born in his victories in the small ones. The same is true today. The decisions we make in private, what we watch, what we eat, what we allow into our hearts, are the foundations of whether we stand or fall when the fire comes. Think about the modern table of Babylon. It is set with endless entertainment, addictions disguised as pleasure, shortcuts that erode integrity. How many people fall because they think it's just one small compromise? But Daniel reminds us, one small yes to Babylon becomes a chain. One small no to Babylon becomes freedom. This is not just history, it is a roadmap for survival in a culture that constantly tries to define us. Daniel refused to let Babylon name him, feed him, or own him. He stood, and God honored him. The lesson is clear and deeply healing. You do not need to win the whole battle at once. You need to win the small choices that define who you are. That is where purity begins, and that is where freedom is preserved. The story of Daniel's first stand whispers to every heart today. Do not underestimate the power of one choice. In the face of pressure, choose identity over assimilation, purity over compromise, truth over comfort. Because when the greater trials come, those choices will be the armor that keeps you standing. And as Daniel's courage inspired his friends and shaped a nation, so too your choices can inspire those around you. The quiet faith of one soul has the power to shake kingdoms. Faith in the fire. Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego. The furnace roared hotter than the sun, flames leaping like wild beasts, consuming everything in their path. The decree was clear: bow before the golden idol, or be cast into the fire. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, 3 young men exiled from their homeland, stood in the heart of Babylon, surrounded by thousands bowing low, their foreheads pressed to the ground. But these 3 stood tall. The crowd hissed, the officials sneered, and the king's fury burned hotter than the furnace itself. Why did they not kneel? Because their allegiance was not for sale. Their souls were anchored in something greater than Babylon's threats, greater than the king's power, greater than the fire's rage. This moment reveals the secret of unshakable faith. They were not reckless, they were rooted. They did not know whether God would deliver them or allow them to die, but their words still echo with explosive power. Even if he does not, we will not bow. That is the language of true freedom, when no empire, no culture, no fear of death can control your choices. Babylon's strength was intimidation, but these 3 revealed that faith cannot be bullied. In today's world, the furnace takes different forms. It may not be fire licking at your skin, but it is the flames of public opinion, the burning heat of rejection, the pressure to conform. When the culture shouts that you must bow to trends, ideologies, and pleasures, the story of the furnace shouts back, stand tall. Modern Babylon tries to melt your convictions in the heat of peer pressure, but if your faith is anchored, you will stand unburned. The miracle is not only that the men survived, it is that in the fire they walked free, unbound, with the presence of the Son of God standing beside them. The furnace designed to destroy them became the stage where God revealed his glory. That is the lesson for us. Our trials are not the end. They are the canvas where divine power is painted for the world to see. Comment below what kind of fire you are facing, because your testimony of standing tall could inspire someone else who feels alone in their furnace. Daniel in the lion's den, the cost of prayer. The decree was absolute. Anyone who prayed to any god except the king would be thrown into the lion's den. For 30 days, Babylon demanded silence. 30 days of worshipping man instead of God. Daniel could have hidden, he could have prayed in secret, he could have compromised for just a month. But he did not. The windows of his chamber opened toward Jerusalem, and 3 times a day he knelt, lifting his voice to heaven, knowing full well that the spies were waiting, that the trap was set, that the lions were hungry. His choice was not about survival, but about allegiance. To Daniel, prayer was not a ritual, it was life itself, breath to his soul. When they hurled him into the pit, the air shook with the growls of beasts, claws scraping the stone, eyes glowing in the darkness. Babylon thought this would silence his faith, but the roar of lions became the backdrop to one of the most astonishing miracles in Scripture. The God who shut the mouths of lions still whispers today, "Do not fear, I am with you." Daniel's survival was not luck. It was the fruit of a lifetime of small daily decisions, each one declaring, "My loyalty belongs to God." Think of the lion's den in modern life. For some, it is the threat of losing a job for holding to faith. For others, it is the fear of being mocked, cancelled, or cast out. The lions today may not bite flesh, but they devour reputations, dignity, courage. Yet Daniel reminds us, prayer is not weakness, it is strength. It is not retreat, it is battle. When you kneel before God, you can stand before any man, any system, any empire. The healing truth is this: courage does not come from pretending the lions are not real. It comes from trusting the one who rules over them. The den designed to end Daniel became the platform where God's power was displayed before kings and nations. Just as the furnace turned into a testimony, so did the lion's pit become a pulpit, declaring divine sovereignty. The deeper lesson for us is piercing. The cost of prayer may be high, but the cost of silence is higher. If you stop praying, you surrender before Babylon without a fight. Daniel shows us that the world may demand your silence, but heaven listens to every whispered prayer. That is how faith not only survives Babylon, it conquers it. And when the mouths of lions close, the world will know that there is still a God who reigns. Wisdom above Babylon, dreams, visions, and divine insight. Nebuchadnezzar could command armies, build colossal statues, and bend nations to his will. But one night's dream left him trembling like a child. None of the magicians, astrologers, or scholars of Babylon could unlock its meaning. The wisest minds of the empire stood powerless before a mystery too deep for human brilliance. And then Daniel, a prisoner of war, entered the throne room, not with scrolls or formulas, but with a revelation straight from the throne of heaven. This is the breathtaking difference. Babylon's wisdom ends where God's wisdom begins. Daniel's insight into dreams and visions was not learned in the classrooms of Babylon. It was birthed in prayer and communion with the living God. His words did more than interpret. They unveiled the truth of kingdoms rising and falling, and the eternal reign of a divine king whose kingdom would never be destroyed. The lesson is alive for us today. In modern Babylon, knowledge has multiplied, technology dazzles, artificial intelligence predicts, Wall Street calculates, universities teach endless theories. But still humanity trembles before its unanswered questions. Who am I? Why am I here? What comes after death? Like Nebuchadnezzar's wise men, our world offers data, but not destiny, theories, but not truth. Daniel shows us that wisdom is not information, it is revelation. When you align with God, you see what others miss. Your insight becomes light in a world stumbling in the dark. Imagine bringing that light into your workplace, your school, your family, your decisions infused with divine clarity when everyone else is confused. That is what Daniel carried, and that is what every believer is invited to carry. But here lies the tension. Babylon will always glorify its own knowledge. It will mock revelation and exalt reason. The challenge is to resist being intimidated by the noise of worldly wisdom. Just as Daniel stood before kings and declared, "No wise man can explain this mystery, but there is a God in heaven who reveals secrets." We are called to speak with the same boldness. The healing truth is this: you don't need to outsmart Babylon, you only need to outtrust it, placing your faith in the one whose wisdom never fails. This is why the book of Daniel still burns with relevance. Comment below what kind of mystery you are seeking wisdom for, because sharing your journey could awaken hope for someone else who feels lost in Babylon's confusion. Surviving our modern Babylon. The Empire of Babylon may have fallen centuries ago, but its spirit still reigns in the modern world. Today's Babylon wears new clothing, corporate towers instead of ziggurats, glowing screens instead of golden idols, entertainment and consumerism instead of statues of stone. Yet the goal remains unchanged: to seduce hearts, reshape identities, and silence faith. Every day, you and I walk into a battlefield of values. Will we blend in, or will we stand out? Daniel's story is not preserved as ancient history, but as a survival manual for our souls. Think of the parallels. Babylon offered Daniel food that looked irresistible but was poisoned with compromise. Today, the culture serves us endless content, temptations dressed as pleasure, shortcuts disguised as success. Babylon threatened Daniel with fire and lions to force conformity. Today, society threatens us with ridicule, isolation, or cancelling if we don't bow to its idols. The methods have changed, but the test is the same. And here is the good news. The God who sustained Daniel is still the same God who sustains us. His presence in the fire, his power in the lion's den, his wisdom in the dreams, all of it is available now. To survive modern Babylon, we must reclaim the same three anchors Daniel lived by: purity, prayer, and perspective. Purity, choosing faithfulness in small things. Prayer, staying connected to the source of strength when the world demands silence. Perspective, seeing beyond Babylon's glitter to the eternal kingdom that will never fall. The healing truth is that you are not powerless in this struggle. The very trials meant to break you can become the stages where God's glory is revealed through you. Daniel's courage did not just save him. It shook empires, converted kings, and left a legacy that still calls out to us today. So the challenge is personal. Where do you see Babylon pressing against your life? Is it in the pursuit of wealth at the cost of your soul? Is it in relationships that demand compromise? Is it in the quiet apathy that dulls your faith? Identifying your Babylon is the first step to overcoming it. And when you choose to stand, you are not standing alone. You are standing with Daniel, with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, with a cloud of witnesses across centuries who refused to bow. Comment with the words, "I will not bow," if you are ready to declare that even in the midst of this modern Babylon, your faith will remain unshaken. Because the story of Daniel is not just his, it is ours, and his victory can become the roadmap for our survival. Daniel's story does not close with fire or lions. It closes with a vision that pierces time itself. He saw empires rise and collapse, kings come and go, but through it all he saw a kingdom that would never fall. Babylon was strong, Persia was mighty, Rome would one day march across the earth, but Daniel declared that every throne made by men would crumble into dust, while the throne of God would stand forever. That vision was not only for him, it is for us. We live in a world that looks powerful, that dazzles with technology, entertainment, and wealth, but like Babylon, it will not last. The skyscrapers of our modern world will one day fall silent. The voices of idols will fade, but faith will remain. The book of Daniel is not a relic of history. It is a call to courage, a summons to purity, a challenge to rise above the noise of our own modern Babylon. Think about what we have walked through together in this journey. The food on the king's table that seemed harmless, but was poisoned with compromise. The furnace that threatened to consume, but became a stage for God's glory. The lion's den that was meant to silence prayer, but instead amplified it across the empire. Every scene is a mirror of our world. You and I face the table of temptation every day when we are told to give up our values for convenience. We face the furnace of ridicule when we dare to live differently. We face the lions of fear when we lift our voices in prayer in a culture that mocks faith. But Daniel's story is proof that standing firm is never wasted. God honors faith, even in exile. God delivers, even when the odds seem impossible. God still speaks, even when Babylon roars. There is a reason Daniel's name still inspires after thousands of years. It is because he teaches us that you do not have to rule a nation to influence it. You do not need an army to change history. You need faith. Faith that says no to compromise. Faith that says yes to courage. Faith that chooses prayer over silence. Faith that sees beyond Babylon to a kingdom that cannot be shaken. That kind of faith transforms exile into testimony. And maybe you right now feel like an exile in your own Babylon. Maybe you feel trapped by systems bigger than you, seduced by voices louder than yours, pressured by forces you cannot control. Let this story remind you, you are not powerless. The same God who shut the lions' mouths and walked in the fire is the same God who stands with you today. Close your eyes and imagine it. Daniel standing in the lion's den, the beasts pacing around him, their breath hot, their eyes gleaming. And yet not one tooth touched him because heaven itself had spoken. Imagine the three young men standing in the furnace, their bonds burning away while the Son of God walked with them in the flames. These are not just dramatic images, they are living promises. They declare that no fire, no lion, no Babylon has the final word. Your trials may roar, but God's presence roars louder. Your exile may feel endless, but God's kingdom is eternal. This is the hope that heals the weary soul, the strength that lifts the broken heart, the light that shatters the darkness of every Babylon. So what will you do with this story? Will you let it remain words on a page? Or will you let it ignite a fire inside you? Will you bow to the idols of comfort, approval, and compromise? Or will you stand with Daniel and say, even if he does not, I will not bow? Comment below and share what Babylon looks like in your life today, because when you speak, you not only declare your stand, but you may also spark courage in someone else who is struggling in silence. We need each other's voices, each other's testimonies, each other's light. That is how we survive Babylon, not alone, but together. If this message has touched your heart, if it has given you strength in a dark season or clarity in the middle of confusion, I invite you to stay connected. Like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe so you will not miss the next word of life that could lift you in your journey. And if you feel this story has brought value to your soul, if it has been a spark of light in your dark days, I welcome you to support this mission with whatever energy you can offer, so I can continue to share these timeless truths that heal and inspire. Every gesture, no matter how small, is priceless. It keeps this voice alive. It keeps the message of faith echoing in a world that so desperately needs it. Thank you with all my heart. The legacy of Daniel is not locked in ancient history. It breathes in every person who chooses courage over compromise, prayer over silence, hope over despair. The call is simple, but it is powerful. Stand firm. Stand in your school. Stand in your workplace. Stand in your family. Stand in your community. Stand when Babylon roars, and stand when it whispers. Because when you stand, you are never standing alone. You are standing with Daniel, with the three in the fire, with a cloud of witnesses who prove that faith is stronger than fear. Love is stronger than hate, and God's kingdom is stronger than Babylon. This is not just Daniel's story. It is yours. It is ours. And it is still being written today.